Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com runs down the major markets. He tells us what was behind Toronto hitting new highs. Uranium, crude, and the Canadian dollar were part of the surge. People's Party of Canada leader Maxime joins us to give us his overview of the economy and how he would get it back on track. He calls inflation a hidden tax and explains how he would lighten the tax burden on Canadians. Martin Armstrong, founder of Armstrong Economics, points out politicians used to be picked because of their intelligence. Now, that's a rare trait. He has a theory about why cryptocurrencies were invented and hints it might be part of the war on cash. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have a company showcase update from American Manganese President Larry Reaugh. We'll talk to Ross Clark right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMY.V, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Reaugh, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com, where you'll find insightful market commentary and timely technical analysis. You can find him on Twitter at ChartsByRoss. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Jim.
Ross, the Toronto Stock Exchange hitting an all-time high. Guess they felt it was time to join their U.S. partners in setting some new highs. What was the story there?
Well, the story you got, this weak U.S. dollar on the employment numbers. So if you look at just about anything priced in U.S. dollars, had a pretty good day today. The Canadian dollar, without a doubt, had good price action. We're at, 79.80 right now, and so this is approaching the highs that we put in back at the 1st of August. That was around 80.5. From there, if you recall, we sold off to 77 and change and we bounced back. But this rally has the last 10 days has been with a decline in the U.S. dollar, which really got hit quite a bit here as of the end of the week. So what we've got is that a lot of markets related to the currency action have gotten up to significant points. Like the Canadian dollar has rallied back up to its 50-day moving average, which is a normal spot for resistance. If you look at the euro, you've got the same thing over there. If you go over into the commodity sector and you look at the miners, which had a really good day because of what was going over in the gold and silver markets, miners closed at their best levels in about 4 weeks. But the GDX, the GDXJ, they're up to their 50-day averages, which would be a normal spot for resistance. So we really need to watch next week to see how much follow-through there is.
What's going on with crude?
Crude had that good oversold as far as the oil market was concerned back here a couple of weeks ago. And the normal reaction, we've been looking at this as a cyclic high that occurred at $77. And that you had an ABC decline. So you had one wave of selling, you had a bounce, and then you have a second wave of selling. And from there, the norm would have been a 50% retracement rally. That happened as of midweek this week, and it happened much faster than the previous models that we've been, or correlations that we've been working with, and also got up to that 50% level, just shy of an important channel. So if you take a look at the way this has been declining, this retracement rally at 50% was around $69.50. The channel resistance is up at 71, and the other examples had trouble once they got over to that downward sloping channel. And as of this Friday, We've held the resistance level, closed back down at 69.5. Probably the next week is important here as far as oil concerned. If it can't push through that $71 level and it starts to give up ground through 68.5, then you could be looking for another decent leg to the downside. I'm looking at it purely from a technical perspective, not trying to have any bias in here. We know that the rally's been good and better than might have anticipated, in that it was fast. And let's just see whether it's got staying power. The other one that has done exceptionally well is the natural gas. The correction there from the 4.25 level back to 380 went into a short-term oversold reading as we're in the latter part of August. Normally, you would look for a good oversold low, a better one than that, in August, September. So this one's turned much faster than we had looked for, but it's probably got staying power. And typically at this time of year, nat gas will rally through September into an October-November high. People might think that, the high in nat gas would be normally in the winter, but the run really is usually over some point in November or a little bit sooner. So nat gas is on a roll right now, and the gassy stocks like tourmaline are doing exceptionally well. So there's probably, here we are just finishing off the first part of September. There's probably lots more left on the upside for that sector.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Always nice to be with you, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com. You can find him on Twitter at ChartsByRoss. Coming up, Maxime Bernier, next on This Week in Money.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision. Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com. This Week in Money is archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com.
Welcome back. My guest is Maxime Bernier, founder and leader of the People's Party of Canada, online at peoplespartyofcanada.ca. You can follow Maxime on Twitter at Maxime Bernier. Max, welcome back to This Week in Money.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity.
Maxime, how's the campaign going so far across Canada and in your home riding of Beauce?
It's going very well. I can tell you there's a momentum, and I believe that the People's Party of Canada will do well the 20th of September. Why? Because now the ballot question for this election, I believe that Canadians will ask them one question, that is, do you want more and more of the same, what you had the last 18 months, or you want to go back to your life before COVID-19? And, with what Trudeau is doing and O'Toole, both of them are ready to impose a vaccine passport. And as you know, actually, Justin Trudeau will spend $1 billion that, by the way, we don't have, to give that to provinces for them to be able to impose their vaccine passport. And as you know, Quebec and Ontario will have Quebec already today. It's a sad day for Quebecers. Today, the vaccine passport is enforced in Quebec, and that will be enforced in Ontario just a little bit later in this month. So that's the question. If you are vaccinated or not, that's irrelevant, because now we know that vaccinated people and unvaccinated people can spread the virus. The virus does not care if you are vaccinated or not. And Trudeau said that, people who decided freely not to take the vaccine are irresponsible, and they are putting at risk their own kids and other kids. He said that yesterday. Justin Trudeau, what he's doing right now is doing some segregation, dividing us in two kinds of citizens: the good one, the vaccinated one, and the bad one, the unvaccinated one. So we don't play that game, and our goal is to unite everybody, unite Canadians under the umbrella of freedom and liberty. And if you have your vaccine passport, and because you decided to have the 2 shots, people must know that the vaccine will have an expiration date, and the expiration date, it will be when they will ask you for another shot, a 3rd one, a 4th one. And as you know, Justin Trudeau bought for $16 million a booster shot until 2024. So that won't end. The only way to end that is to support the PPC, because we fought for that since the beginning of that crisis for the last 18 months. And I believe that's the most important question for this election, because we know that only in a free society is there human dignity, equality of rights, and economic prosperity. And now we are not in a free society anymore when you have people that will have to show their papers. They will have to show a vaccine passport that is enforced with all the shots that they will need to have, or a negative COVID-19 test. So I don't want a society like that when you have to show your papers. And that's why this party is growing. People know that we created that party based on 4 principles: individual freedom and personal responsibility. So we will never do any compromise with our principles. And I'm traveling across the country. I was in New Brunswick last weekend. I'll be in BC this weekend. Now I'm in Saskatchewan, in Regina. And I can tell you that people are asking me questions about that. They are not happy. They are mad. You saw that on TV. And, I understand people that protest when Trudeau is doing rallies, because when your rights and freedom are under attack like that, that's a normal reaction. And, we have the freedom of speech and freedom of assembly in this country. As long as it is peacefully, I'm okay with that. But I understand their anger. And they know that they don't want to live in a communist country. And we are near that when you have a prime minister that is telling his own civil servants that if they don't have the vaccine passport, there will be consequences. That means that he will punish civil servants that decided not to have the vaccine. It's their right, and they have the right to decide that in a free society. I can tell you that a lot of Canadians will punish Justin Trudeau the 28th of September, because we don't want to live in a society like that when you don't have any liberty. You'll have to show papers to go to a restaurant, but that's not based on logic, because, like I said, the virus can be spread by vaccinated people and unvaccinated people. So it's division, and Canadians don't like that. And I look at the Conservative Party of Canada, they're not doing anything about that. Actually, as you know, Aaron O'Toole decided that his candidate in Yukon, because he was against the vaccine passport, didn't have the right to be a Conservative candidate. That's the position of the Conservative Party of Canada. They're not conservative, they're leftist, and Justin Trudeau and Aaron O'Toole are saying the same thing, and we are the only real alternative to save that country. So that's why I believe that we'll have a nice evening, the 20th of September, but that will be a little more difficult for O'Toole and Trudeau.
What are you Mad Max about today?
I'm mad about all that. All that, the loss of our freedom, the loss of our civilization. Without freedom, we cannot have a prosperous country. And now I'm mad about that. I'm mad that also the mainstream journalists don't want to cover us because what we are saying is powerful. It's based on science, it's based on truth, it's based on facts, and they don't want to hear that. But I can tell you that the mainstream media will have to cover us after the election, because I believe that we can do better than the Green Party of Canada and growing our support all across the country.
How concerned are you about inflation?
Oh my God, it's there right now. And that's because for the COVID-19 spending, the $350 billion deficit, that's why we have a huge deficit like that, the biggest one in the Canadian history. And we are paying for it right now. Inflation is a hidden tax. You know, instead of taxing you and taking your money in your own pocket, Trudeau is just saying, you know, you can keep your money, but you won't be able to buy the same amount of goods and services with your money because of inflation. Your purchasing power will go down, your standard of living will go down, and everybody will be poor. And that's happening now. Just go to the grocery. There's about 5% inflation there minimum, and that will grow because the spending won't stop. Trudeau and O'Toole, they are campaigning and they are promising money that we don't have. My first promise that I did during this campaign was to say we won't give any money to Canadians. We don't have any money. We are broke. We need to balance the budget. And to do that, we won't raise taxes. We will cut spending. So we need, and all the spending that O'Toole and Trudeau are promising to you, we will cut that. And they're not responsible. O'Toole said yesterday that, he will balance the budget in 10 years, but he wants to have a 4-year mandate. But also he said, I will balance the budget without cutting, without any cut. So that means he's speaking like Trudeau. He's saying to Canadians that the budget balance itself, and we know that it cannot happen like that. Canadians are fiscally responsible. So O'Toole, Trudeau, it's the same. It's the same. That's why I call them the Lib-Com party. And now we have more and more proof of that every day of this election. So I believe that inflation is there. We must stop that. The only way to stop that is to have a zero inflation target with the Bank of Canada, because the Bank of Canada now is creating money out of thin air. That's creating inflation to finance that huge deficit. We must stop that. We must go back to a sound money, and we don't have a sound money right now. So it's too bad with that inflation, but I believe that it will grow because nobody wants to be serious about that and cutting the budget to be sure to be fiscally responsible, and after that lower taxes to every single Canadian.
Are vaccine passports, lockdowns, and the medical tyranny designed to destroy the economy?
It is. You're right. It is. Lockdowns, it's the first time in the history of the world that we are using lockdowns to kill a virus. It's an experiment that failed, and we don't want that in the future. So that's why I think the important question will be all that COVID-19 crisis management, the medical tyranny, and I believe that people are fed up with that, and they don't want to live under a medical tyranny that we have right now.
With real free trade, the removal of interprovincial trade barriers, and the building of pipelines, could Canada have the potential to become a worldwide economic powerhouse?
Oh, you're right. We are for pipelines. We need to build pipelines all across the country, and we can do that if Ottawa use the Constitution like that. If the federal government use the Constitution, the federal government will have the full jurisdiction, the full autonomy, the full responsibility to approve and build pipelines all across this country. So we must do that. It will be good for the prosperity of our country, like you said, but it will be good also for the unity of our country. O'Toole and Trudeau are the same on that. They're afraid. They're listening to radical environmentalists on that. and they won't move. And it's very bad for the country.
Do you think this is the most important election of our lifetime?
I won't say the most important, but one of the most important. It is a critical election because our freedoms, our way of life are under attack. And that's why, people must go out there and vote. There's no excuse. If you want to save this country, be active, vote, and look. I want you to look at the other political parties, the platform. Just do your homework, and you'll be able to see that the People's Party is the only option. All the other options suck.
Your thoughts on taxes, carbon taxes, income taxes, and the possible capital gains tax on your home?
Yeah, we're against that. It's coming. And Trudeau will need money to try to not balancing the budget because he won't, but because he's spending a lot of money, so he will try to find money. And the next tax, the new tax, will be after the Trudeau's inflation tax, because we have that right now, and that inflation tax will grow, and it will be more costly for us. But the second one will be a tax on our home, on our home, and we are against that. It is insane what is happening right now in Ottawa. The spending, they think that more spending will stimulate the economy. It is the opposite. It is a sedative for the economy and a sedative for Canadians. They won't be able to keep their money in their pocket and to live and to be able to invest and to create growth. That's a very bad economic policy that the both main establishment political parties are proposing to Canadians.
Should people be concerned about Bills C-10, C-36, the censorship of the Internet, and the freedom of speech?
Absolutely, Jim. It's a censorship. We have right now censorship on social media by the big tech. We need to stop that. We need to do like the governor of Florida that is tackling that and fighting that. And now Trudeau wants to impose more censorship with Bills C-36 and C-10. And on social media, you won't be able to say what you want to say or write what you want to write on social media. Somebody will be able to complain to a bureaucracy, to a bureaucrat in Ottawa, and look at what you're doing on the social media and censor you. So that's not Canadian. That's why I'm telling you, we are going through communism in this country. And that's why, like I said before, this election is a very important one for the future of our country. Jim, I think I will have to go, but I hope I'll be able to be with you a little bit later this week or early next week.
Maxime, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
I appreciate that. Let's stay in touch.
Good luck.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
My guest has been Maxime Bernier, founder and leader of the People's Party of Canada, online at peoplespartyofcanada.ca. You can follow Maxime on Twitter at Maxime Bernier. Coming up, Martin Armstrong, next on This Week in Money.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMY.V, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Reaugh, at 778-574-4444.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. My guest is Martin Armstrong, founder of Armstrong Economics, available online at armstrongeconomics.com. He's speaking to us from Tampa, Florida. Welcome back to This Week in Money, Martin.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
How are your latest books doing, and where can people get them?
They're available on Amazon and I think Barnes & Noble. I think the first one is now in its fifth edition. manipulating the world economy. That just keeps selling out all the time. It's very relevant to what's going on in the world and why they're trying to change everything. So this pretty much goes into everything, including the COVID scams and what it's really being used for and things of that nature. So it's interesting times that we face, that's for sure.
Canada has a federal election underway. Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, has his party running candidates in 331 of the 338 ridings, and he just told us the People's Party is the only party in this election that freedom for the people and against vaccine passports is the major issue. Are people around the world waking up and demanding their freedom back and no more vaccine passports and other mandatory government measures?
Yes, I mean we're seeing it really everywhere from Australia throughout Europe. In Britain, they came out with their app for the vaccine passport, and everyone was really shocked. This has got nothing really to do with COVID. It's got virtually everything about you, any suspected criminal, allegations, criminal convictions, what's your ethnic background, your family, everything about you. It's like the old Stasi, really files on everybody, and it's what's your sexual idea. I mean, absolutely everything is there. And so this COVID thing is just being used, as the catalyst really to create this database, and people don't realize that you can go and look at the World Health Organization is one of the ones behind this, and the people that have funded it are the Gates Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation. Gates has already got nearly 1 billion people in India in his database. And why he wants to create this database on absolutely everybody in the world, I don't know. I mean, it's just, why do we need to give up absolutely everything? I mean, there's no respect for human rights or privacy or anything anymore. And, you can look at Reuters. I mean, all of these, they're starting to come out that, most of the COVID things are basically the flu. Reuters reported that, that virtually flu has been wiped out. And same thing from a lot of newspapers. And the number of flu infections are down dramatically. Because this COVID is a coronavirus. And that basically affects your respiratory system the same way as the flu does. And the real problem with this is that they've been lying through their teeth. When they created vaccines to go after smallpox or polio, something like that, it was confined to the human race. So it could be vaccinated and eradicated. When you're talking about these coronaviruses, they've already reported that 40% of the wild deer have COVID antibodies already. It resides in animals, like the flu. That's why they can't cure it. We get the bird flu. The next one is the swine flu. These types of viruses reside in animals as well as humans. And that means that there's no vaccine that is ever going to eradicate this. And we're already seeing that people, Israel has reported that 50% of the people in hospitals with this new variant have already been vaccinated. It's because these viruses from a corona side are always going to mutate to defeat any vaccine. So, I mean, this is basic science. I mean, it's not, really conspiracy theory or anything else. It's why they can't cure the common cold. And each year you get a flu shot, and they're anticipating what it might be this year, because it runs through a cycle. It's always going to change. And so this idea that, vaccinating the whole world will eliminate COVID, it's nonsense. Your country's already bought vaccines for 2022, 23, and 24. They've already put in the order to Medina. So that shows there's no intention of, once you get vaccinated, we'll get back to normal. There is no return to normal. They're using this for an economic crisis that is coming down. And that is that for years they have been effectively borrowing with no intention of paying anything back. And they brought interest rates down to negative in Europe in 2014, and it has failed to stimulate the economy. So in the process, they wiped out their bond markets. Their pension funds, which they mandated had to buy government bonds, are insolvent. So this great reset is really about government defaulting on all debt and redesigning the world monetary system so they no longer borrow. And this guaranteed basic income, it will be used to replace pensions. This is what this is really about. And getting us all using this COVID to get everybody into some database, it's quite alarming. I mean, you can Google the Bank of England has come to Parliament and said you need to strengthen the cryptocurrency so that employers and the government can control what you're allowed to spend money on. The BIS is the same thing. They've come out, they'll be able to, once they move to a digital currency, they can say, okay, fine, you're not allowed to buy X, Y, or Z. And this is their objective here. It's really total 100% control. And this is what they're after, because the alternative is they default, and then the people will storm their palaces with the pitchforks or whatever and drag them out. There's people, have been expecting, worked their whole life and thought they were going to get this pension and it's gone. So this is their alternative to what would be a revolution. And they're desperately trying to move this agenda very, very, rapidly. But they're bringing it in step by step by step. I mean, here we are almost 2 years into it. There's still no return to normal. You look at in Australia and New South Wales, I mean, they're putting police on every corner. You're not allowed to leave your house. You can't leave more than drive more than 5K from your house. In Europe, they're preventing people from crossing borders. This is insane. It's absolutely insane. And for a death toll that is no greater than that of the flu. And it just really is absurd. And like I say, Israel has confirmed that 50% of the people in the hospital have already been vaccinated. So, they're out here again saying, they're getting sick because of the unvaccinated. Well, if you're vaccinated and that's supposed to protect you, then obviously it doesn't matter how many people are unvaccinated, then you shouldn't be getting it. But they are. So the vaccines are not working. There are other, reports that Israel has come out and said the Pfizer, vaccine is only 39% effective. So this is mostly all just propaganda for political purposes, and that's what this is about. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that the government really cares, and they don't care anything about you. It's about them, and they're trying to retain power, and this is the way they're looking at an inevitable revolution. When people wake up and realize that everything they've been working for is for naught.
Your thoughts on establishment political parties in Canada versus the United States?
I think, the problem that you're seeing is your two main parties are in agreement. More lockdowns, control people, this is absurd. And in the United States, we have a little bit more of a really a diversity here. But if you look at what's going on with Biden, I mean, it's a joke. I mean, I used to be part of the process before '99, and I would go around. I was asked to go meet with people who wanted to run for president, and it was a real vetting process. They were told I'm there to advise on the world economy, but really I was being asked my assessment. Do you think they can handle it? Are they intelligent enough, etc. Then George Bush Jr. was coming up, and I got the call, and I swear to God on my soul that they said, we want you to go to Texas, to meet with him, but this one's different. I said, what do you mean it's different? They said, no, he's really stupid. And I was totally shocked, because for 2 decades before, it was, or do you think they're qualified? Then it was all of a sudden, he's stupid. And I asked, why would you make somebody stupid president? And they said, he's got the name. And from then on, the bureaucracy started grabbing more and more power. All right, this is why they didn't like Trump, because Trump naively thought being president of the United States he can actually control things, and he found out he couldn't. All right, so now they have basically Dumb and Dumber in there, and I mean, just the importance of a president is he sits between these agencies, and he makes the final decision. Biden is a complete failure, and Afghanistan is an example of this. We have all these agencies, and they all were just doing their own thing. So it looks like a complete failure, a mess, because there wasn't somebody there to make that final decision. So it's just a joke. The whole thing is a joke, but this is how the bureaucracy, what people call the deep state, is now in control. So we have the parties, the Republicans are still on the sidelines a little bit, but honestly, I got a call from them, and they asked me to get back in the game, and I said, for what? And they said they wanted me to convince Trump not to run in 2024, and to advise DeSantis to become president. And I said, why? So you're going to take him into Washington and basically hamstring him, and he's not going to be able to do anything, yet I'm supposed to bullshit him and tell him, oh yes, you're going to lead the country? I said, I'm not doing it. I said, you people are just, beside yourself. The game is over. And they just look at you like, but we're in Washington. I said, that's your problem. It's the youth people are down there. It's like it's Disneyland. Don't leave Washington. You don't see what's actually happening in the country. And the same thing's going on in Canada. So, I mean, everybody got their back up when Trump was elected. And when I went down to Washington, they thought it was a fluke. And I said, no, I mean, because he beat 17 career politicians. So they go, oh, this is populism. And that's dangerous. Allowing that people to actually vote, that's horrible. This is really what the way they look at it. And they said, oh, it's just a fluke. And I said, no, it was a vote against you. And you don't understand that. It's not that Trump was this fantastic guy on a white horse, etc. It was the fact that he wasn't a career politician. And they don't even like governors. When I was in Washington and Ronald Reagan was elected, it was the same thing. Oh my God, we're going to have to deal with this. We're going to have to train him. This is their view. If you look at Biden, always in Congress, all right? Harris in Congress. When Trump was told to pick a VP, all right, from Congress. They don't like people from outside of Washington, not even a governor. So it's very, so I told them that. So I wouldn't advise DeSantis to step into your sandbox, because you're not going to allow him to do what he should be doing, and you're still going to control it and ruin his reputation. So I said, no, I'm not interested. But this is the way this operates. And people don't realize, but the bureaucracy is really, really in control. And, you have a great opportunity here if the Canadians would abandon the two major parties and go after the third party here, they could really help to save your country. Otherwise, honestly, if Trudeau gets in, our computer's projecting you're going to end up splitting up. Alberta will move to separate, and parts of BC will probably join. So, I mean, that's really what you're going to be looking at. I mean, but these separatist movements are happening everywhere. In Europe, Denmark is just basically broke ranks with the rest of Europe and said they've downgraded COVID. It's no longer a major threat. They're treating it like it's the flu. You're seeing this happening a lot more, particularly in Scandinavia, and in Southeast Asia as well. So there are places that are beginning to realize, wait a minute, this is grossly over-exaggerated. And why? I mean, the deaths are just, anybody that had any respiratory, mark it as COVID. Yet I had a respiratory issue. They tested me 5 times and was always negative. And I went to Tampa Hospital, to the head of pulmonary there, and I said, look, I've been tested 5 times, I don't have COVID. And he said, yeah, that doesn't mean anything because the tests are invalid. And the second doctor said, yeah, I know, the test came back negative, but I still think you had it. I said, oh, okay, fine, thank you. This is the joke. The tests aren't valid. The doctors that I've went to even, they laugh at it. So what are you supposed to do? I mean, this is all political.
Through government spending sprees and massive growth in consumer and mortgage debt, could the greater goal be to bankrupt Canada and the people of Canada?
Well, it's not necessarily to bankrupt. What they will do is they will default on government debts, and it's not just Canada, but this is what they're all doing, and they can no longer continue the game, kicking the can down the road. They have been borrowing year after year since World War II with no intention of paying anything back. It's absurd. I mean, just look at the Democrats trying to push through a $3.5 trillion spending spree. All right. When Ronald Reagan came to power, they were all freaking out because the national debt in 1980 hit $1 trillion. We're now approaching 29. To them, I've been in meetings. I've said, look, this is not going to work. They go, yeah, but we're the government. They have no responsibility. We elect people that have no expertise, and they look nice. What's the expertise of Trudeau? Absolutely zero. All right, and yet we put people in here to make decisions on what? You got Bill Gates, who's a college dropout, and the press goes to him basically as if he's the major, expert on all of this sort of thing from every disease in the planet. So it's really kind of quite dramatic that these people have absolutely zero experience or a degree in anything, yet they stand up and they're manipulating the economy, declaring what we're doing with on health. The head of the WHO, Cheetos, he's not a medical doctor. It's the first time a non-doctor has been put in charge of the World Health Organization. I mean, that's like, putting me in charge of a monastery or something. I mean, it's absurd. Yet this is what's going on. You look at Christine Lagarde. She's now the head of the ECB. She's a lawyer, all right? Schwab put her in as the head of the IMF. Then from the IMF to the ECB. She has no background in anything to do with economics. Zero. Draghi, who took the interest rates to negative. I can tell you 100% he didn't know anything about what he was doing, and he sat in a trading room in the corner of the room just to watch how foreign exchange traded. I know the guys that were there. I mean, it's just why we elect people to these positions, heads of state, and they have absolutely zero expertise in what they're going to do. It's dumbfounding to me.
Would a spike higher in interest rates bankrupt a lot of people, businesses, and countries?
More on the government side, the people have to understand that most of the propaganda that, central banks are going to raise or lower interest rates, central banks can only control the short term, not the long term. This whole idea of quantitative easing, what is it? They go into the market to buy bonds and bring them in, and they create the cash to bring that in. Why are they doing that? Because they cannot control the long-term interest rates. So in theory, they buy the bonds, and that will maybe help suppress the interest rate. This is how they try to indirectly control it. But, interest rates are rising. This is simply the way it's going to be. You have you have to understand that if you look at the period of Trump, where he came in 16, that's the low in interest rates. The Fed was raising interest rates all the way up until COVID hit in 20. Yet the press all the time, the Fed's raising interest rates, stock market's it was the biggest rally in history. It was the most hated bull market ever, because you have the press out here saying this propaganda all the time. Interest rates up, so the stock market should go down. I'm sorry, do a simple correlation, you'll find they've been lying to you for decades. The stock market rallies with higher interest rates and declines with lower interest rates. Great Depression, interest rates rose from 1 to 6% at the peak, and they went all the way down to 1%, and it did not support the market. It fell 90%. They lowered interest rates to try and stimulate the economy. It failed. You destroyed the bond market, and what's happening now is that real capital understands that the bond market is highly dangerous. All right? So it's been moving into the equity side. And all these people go, why is the stock market going up and all this stuff, all the problems with this? It's because it's the only place to put money. Simple as that.
At some point, should gold and silver take notice of inflation?
Gold and silver really do not rise with inflation or increasing the debt. What they really rise for is basically a lack in confidence. And we're approaching that. When people begin to realize that they've been lied to about this COVID stuff, the propaganda, they're coming out with this, the vaccines, and that will make us get back to normal. We're almost 2 years into this. There is no return to normal. So all those sayings and that, we'll be back, this is what the market will be looking at, it's all false. Okay? They are taking this one step at a time towards this totalitarian world that they would like to create. And on my site, you can see there's a piece from the London Financial Times back in 2016 when Trump was elected. At Davos, it sent a panic through the mob, because suddenly the career politicians went, oh my God, I could be actually voted out of a job? We can't allow that. And that's why if you can even Google, they've all been out and against populism, which is basically democracy. Little by little, they're basically going to keep trying to get rid of it. And in Europe, they have. In Europe, you get to vote for the parliament only. And the parliament has no power to overrule the commission. The commission doesn't stand for election. Neither does the head of the EU. They were appointed by other heads of state. So there is no way a European can stand up and say, I want to vote against these people, I don't like their ideas. Because you can't vote at all against any of the people that make the ideas. They've succeeded in eliminating democracy completely. And this is what they're trying to bring to the rest of us.
Going forward, do you think it would be riskier to own gold or silver?
No, I think they're definitely attacking the gold market as much as possible. because they want to eliminate paper money. And in doing so, they will also eliminate the cryptocurrency. They'll usurp them and create one digital currency administered by the central bank. The central bank has already been saying that they're going to revise their system, and they'll be taking deposits from non-banks. All right, so this is this digital currency thing. Gold, there is a risk that they could shut down the free markets as they did during Bretton Woods period. Silver, maybe not. But what I think is that you're looking at is that they will be probably used more in the underground economy than particularly if they even try and shut them down from trading. And even Abraham Lincoln did that during the Civil War.
Talking about digital currencies, what are your thoughts on them?
I believe that Bitcoin was created by the deep state. They deliberately put it out there to get everybody used to cryptocurrencies and to think that they're somehow better than paper money and that they are somehow a store of wealth, which is complete propaganda. It can't be a store of wealth as long as it fluctuates up and down. This was largely, I think, to get us indoctrinated and just listen to the BIS. You can Google that. And look at what the Bank of England is pushing. They want to eliminate all currency. And the digital currency will be administered by the central bank. And then they will control what you're allowed to do with it. This is it. So, I mean, all the cryptocurrencies, it's very simple. All they have to do is pass some law, and it's over with. And they will just, whatever you have in Bitcoin or whatever will be automatically converted at a price that they decide, and that will be, you'll get the new central bank digital currency. I mean, that's where we're headed.
Is COVID-19 really about a virus?
Well, I think there is a virus, but I don't. It's been greatly exaggerated for political purposes. And, I mean, they've never done something like this in 6,000 years of recorded history. You quarantine the sick. You did not quarantine the entire population. That's tyranny. All right. So they're using the virus as the excuse to basically put in tyrannical ideas that restrict people from moving, from traveling. I was speaking to someone high up in one of the major airlines, and he basically said that they want to eliminate international travel. The prices will probably be 2 to 3 times what they are now, if not more, and that the only way you'll be able to travel will be with a business permit.
What are in the contents of the vaccine passports? I think we covered that, but maybe go over that again.
You can look at the British passport for COVID, and it includes everything. This is not just about whether you got 2 jabs. That's it. As I said, your government has ordered vaccines for the next 3 years. So I don't see this as, what they're saying, just get vaccinated and we'll get back to normal. That is a total lie. They have no intention of getting back to normal, and the longer people allow them to do this, the more you're going to lose all your rights and those of your children. This is what their objective is. They feel that the system is collapsing. Its socialism is really collapsing in the sense that they can't afford to fund all these promises and pensions and things of this nature. So how do they get out of it? And that is by total suppression of the economy. And I mean, I went behind the Berlin Wall before it fell. I saw what it's like. Friend of mine's family was split, and we went to go visit the other side of his family. And his cousins, would walk us around the city. And if anybody was near us, oh, they take such wonderful care of us, whatever. And as soon as nobody was around, she'd say, oh, she'd call them every name in the book. This is basically what we're looking at. You weren't allowed to move. They were still in the same house that he had, in World War II. Bullet holes were still in the walls. It was never fixed. The government owned everything. It's a disaster. And people don't realize what total government control really is. These people, just go to a division of motor vehicles and just look at the quality of the staff they have there. You're lucky, they don't screw everything up. And these are the people you want to rule the world?
What are the goals of Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset?
Klaus Schwab, we've met, all right? He is a control freak. He is convinced that communism would have worked. The reason it failed was because they only had China and Russia. So his idea is that it's a hybrid of communism in the sense that we are the great unwashed, and we're to lose our rights to vote, etc., because that's populism, and we just don't really understand how the world should work. Only the elite do. So it will be more of a feudal type system, is what he has in mind, where the elite will own everything, and the bourgeoisie, which is the middle class that Marx hated, will basically be suppressed. So it's the same end goal. And these people think, it's a sad statement, but they are delusional. They think if there's only one government, then you will eliminate war. And it's absurd. I've been, spent probably half my life in Europe. I'd like to see a French girl bring home a German to marry, and the father will usually say, you do know what they did to us. I've been in Athens when they were protesting against the Germans not, giving them debt relief. They're dressed up as Nazis. The resentments are long-standing. I was in Yugoslavia and in a meeting, and they said, oh, well, you know what the Muslims did to us. I said, they killed 600 others and put us in a mass grave. And I thought, gee, I'm sorry. I guess I missed that in the news. When did that happen? And they said, oh, about 600 years ago. I said, oh, yes, okay, that one, yes. The things go back much further than resentments are there, and they're always going to be there. And the reason the United States worked, honestly, was because of discrimination. Now, that sounds wild, but what it was, every group, when they got off the boat, to get a job, you had to learn how to speak English. So if they were from Italy or, French or German or whatever, once everybody spoke the same language, then you had all the marriage, Irish marrying Germans, etc. You go to Europe, you don't see that. Why? Because of language. Somebody from Scotland can't speak Italian, and so on. I was a keynote speaker for the Bank of International Settlements at a conference they held in Paris. So I sat at the head table. All the central banks were there, and it was funny because the Italian couldn't speak German, and they all had their different languages. The one language they could all speak was English. So the table started speaking English, and the host was from France, and he was beside himself. Oh, we're in Paris. We should be speaking French. This was the thing. Without that single language, they could not communicate with each other. And that's the problem of Europe versus America. America became the melting pot, But once everybody spoke the same language, it didn't matter. Germans married Irish, Scottish married Italians, or so on. You ask an American, what are you? Oh, I'm 40% Irish. You don't get that in Europe. You just don't. Yes, there are some exceptions, but very rare.
Have you ever met Klaus Schwab?
Yeah. I was invited to his grand opening of a movie he just did in New York City about 2 years ago. It was called The Forum. We shook hands. I mean, I know him. We've always been on the opposite side of tables.
I don't know. From my experience of world history, it's always shady if you have to trust somebody named Klaus. How long do you think the Great Reset push will continue, and will the Great Reset eventually be defeated?
Yes, the Great Reset will be defeated because largely it is against human nature. It would not work, and they're desperately trying to push this through. But again, it's an idea created by a bunch of academics without any real practical experience. And this is always the problem. He's in also with this guy, Piketty, from France, the economist who says, the number one problem is inequality, of wealth. And you see this all the time. Oh, it's not fair, he's got more than I do. That wealth really doesn't have much to do with anything. Let's put it on another plane. Go to a school and say, okay, fine, you got an A and this person flunked. So I'm going to take the points away from you, give you a C, and I'm going to give it to the person that flunked so you both have a C and you both pass. Is that fair? They'll suddenly say, well, no, I worked hard for mine. Okay, well, and then now you're the consumer. Both of them were heart surgeons. Which one do you want? The one that flunked or the one that really had the A? Not everybody is going to earn the same thing. It's as simple as that. Some people have talents that are rare and they get paid more for it. Others don't. I mean, the problem we have right now is the Democrats put in all these bonuses, etc., and extended unemployment. Normally it was for like 16 weeks. They extended it dramatically, and so unemployment's still high. Yet every store you go through, it's got signs up all over the place, help wanted. A company that used to come by and cut the lawn at my house, suddenly they say, look, we can't do it anymore. So what's the problem? We can't get anybody to work. Businesses are shutting down because they can't get people to work. And why should they work if they can earn the same amount of money and sit home? So this idea of equality, not everybody wants to work. All right? Some people are very happy to sit home with guaranteed basic income and watching TV or whatever. And other people would go nuts doing that, and they have to be active and do something. We're not all the same. They tried this in Australia. They saw the Aborigines sleeping in dry riverbeds. That these poor people, they went and they built them some shelters and furnished them, and they thought, oh, okay, fine. Aborigines went in, took the furniture, took it outside, used it for firewood. And I go, well, why didn't you stay in there? To them, they said, that's a prison. I get to sleep underneath the stars. We can't impose our way of thinking or life upon everybody else. We're not all the same. I mean, they, enjoy sleeping outside. That's their thing. Okay? You can build them a house and they didn't want to be in it. So it's, we have to get off this materialistic idea that, oh, he's got less, so he's poor. Maybe he's having a much better life than we do.
How bad do you think things could get before they start to get better?
Well, I think they're going to continue to get worse going into 2022. And then I think we're looking at some serious political unrest by next year. They're counting on people just sucking it up and doing whatever they say. I mean, I would recommend reading a book called Obedience to Authority. It was written by Stanley Milgram, and was after World War II, and the Germans had executed all the Jews, etc. And so the excuse was, oh, well, the Germans are just different. They have no remorse. And so he set up experiments. He took people off the street around the world. They put an actor in the room and told them they asked them these questions, and every time they got it wrong, you have to keep increasing the electric shock. Don't go past a certain point because you might kill them. Took average people off the street, constantly doing this, and of course the guy's deliberately, answering falsely. And he was an actor, and he's like screaming, oh, please, don't do this to me again, I can't take it, I'm sorry, I have to. The average person off the street was willing to torture people. And it's very interesting studies. I highly recommend reading it. And he concluded that as long as somebody else tells you to do something and they are the authority, you will do it. So you have all the various Nazi guards who said, well, why did you do this? I was following orders. You see police beating people in Australia, etc. Under what pretense would you do that to somebody? And, oh, well, I'm just following orders. And it's a very interesting study. I highly recommend just reading it. You can get it off of Amazon or something. It's just called Obedience to Authority.
At the Nuremberg war crimes trial, didn't they hang people who said I was just obeying orders?
Yes, they did. And they didn't believe them. And that's why Stanley Milgram went and did these studies to figure out were they telling the truth? And a lot of them were. It's not that they were, had this devilish idea in their mind to begin with, but they're told to do something, they just do it. Stanley Milgram even conducted another experiment. He took one person, stuck him on a corner, just looking straight up in the air and pointing up there. There was nothing there. People would walk by, they thought he was crazy. 2, 3 people. When he reached 5 people standing out there pointing at absolutely nothing, a crowd would form to see what they were looking at. So one person you think he's crazy. If it's 5 people, oh, it must be something going on. It conducted a lot of very interesting studies, and this shows how humans respond in groups. And eventually, I think what you're going to see is that they've been pushing this COVID thing now going on 2 years. They're going to keep it up. Like I said, your government has bought vaccines for the next 3 years. So you're going to need booster shot number 25. All right? And you're going to find out they just lied to you the entire time. A lot of people are dying from it. I know personally people that have lost because they were vaccinated. My son's father-in-law was vaccinated, ended up in the hospital. He didn't die, and they couldn't explain it. It was like something running around in his body from one organ to the next. The young girls we have working in the company, they didn't get vaccinated, but the friends that did, suddenly their menstrual cycles completely out of whack. Look, there's a lot of problems with it. Some people are affected, others are not. But there are no studies. They're just starting to come out with some studies showing that the people that have been dying from COVID are obese or they had diabetes. But they were just pumping this stuff out to absolutely everybody with no regard that, if you got this sort of a DNA makeup, you better not get it because you would have an adverse effect. I mean, it's a joke to get a vaccine or a drug through the FDA in the United States. Google it. The average time to do so was 12 years. Emergency approval of an experimental drug that's never been done before. This is just political. The 2 top people in vaccines at the FDA just quit. because the government's got, the White House is out there saying, oh, we're going to have booster shots by September 20th. They haven't been approved by the FDA. From what I was told, the people are quitting because they feel that, whatever they do has been completely usurped. The FDA is not there to protect you anymore. The politicians are involved and just telling you you're going to get a booster shot or whatever that's not approved, and they wouldn't do it anyhow. So this whole thing just smells really bad. And, it's because of the economy, because their debt is going to basically default. They know that, and they're just using this as the excuse to change the world economy.
Can Socrates predict cycles of panic in politics?
Yes, it has predicted 2022 and 2024 as panic cycles, and I should say the last time it did so was 1930s.
We're here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. How far do you think people would need to move away from Vancouver to be relatively safe and free as the Great Reset marches forward, and then the aftermath that follows when the Great Reset is defeated?
We have generally a trend, which even the Roman Empire went through. As civilization rises, people come in from the suburbs and to get to the city. That's where they're going to make their fortune, like Hollywood, become famous, whatever. Then when the economy turns down and the cities become more authoritarian, then people leave. The Latin term was suburbium, alright. At the peak, Rome had reached 1 million people. By the Middle Ages, it had fallen to 15,000. And no city reached 1 million population again until the Victorian era in the city of London. So it took, nearly, really 1,400 years before a city would ever rise again to the greatness of Rome. And this was the problem. And we're in that cycle right now. You're seeing, I'm in Florida, and it's unbelievable. How many people are fleeing, especially New York and California. They're fleeing the high tax states. Houses, that were maybe $750 on the water, I would say 3 years ago, 2 years ago even, are already now like double. They're going for like $1.5 million or up. A friend of mine down here, put their house up for sale. They were on and sold it for about 4 times what they paid for it in 1 hour. So you have just people pouring out of the cities. And after what New York did to them, and will do again. The same thing with California. So I was walking on the beach, and a guy had 2 teenage sons out there surfing, and he asked me a question. Oh, are you from Florida? I said, well, originally from Jersey, but I moved down here about 5 years ago. And he said he moved down here because his kids were becoming suicidal. Because up there, the schools are shut down, their careers that they envisioned in sports were just completely wiped out. So, and I've heard that so many times. People have moved here with their children just simply so they could go back to school.
Is big tech turning out to be evil?
Oh, very much so. They've been using this idea that they can censor because the government can't censor, but they can because they're not the government, but they've been working with the government. In Australia, the truckers were planning a protest to block all the roads on August 31st, and all of them, Twitter, I was told even Telegram got involved, that they were deleting all their messages and shutting them down so that they couldn't organize a protest against the Australian government. I mean, that's outrageous. If you think of what, if we're talking about, like, go back to the American Revolution, can you imagine if the press was blackballing anybody that spoke against the king? I mean, this is really what they're doing. This is so anti-democratic. It's unbelievable. If I was president, I'd send the troops in, honestly. But, this is treason to me. It's just absolutely treason.
Is there technology that can control humans?
I know they're trying to work on that. If you're going to start implanting chips and stuff in people's heads, I suppose so. But, right now, I don't think we have to worry about that. But that is on the list of Schwab. But also Schwab and these people, what they're trying to do is also create organs, to extend their own lives. They're in their 80s, most of them, including, Fauci. I think he was born in 1940. They're all up there. And it's like this is their last volley. And maybe they're trying to do this to extend their own life because they're afraid of death. Soros, the same stuff. But this is, you can look at Schwab's 8 points and, we'll create a heart, etc., 3D printing. And, that's very nice if he wants to think he can live forever, but I wouldn't count on it.
How deep and corrupt could the swamp be in the U.S., Canada, and around the world?
It's far deeper than anybody imagines. It's not a swamp. I think it's an ocean. It's too far. And they see themselves largely as the elite, and we are the great unwashed. This is a recipe for revolution, and eventually history warns that it will take place. Probably, I seriously doubt that governments that we know today will still be existing 13 years from now.
With all the division that's been sown in Canada, could we see Western Canada separating, and could that separation bring freedom, safety, and prosperity by no longer being under the thumb of the Great Reset crowd?
Oh, absolutely. I think that particularly if Trudeau wins by any rigged game whatsoever, I think you will see separation become the only viable thing. And the same thing, you go throughout Europe. Scotland wants to break away from England, but Wales also wants to break away. You have the same thing going on virtually everywhere else. Northern Italy against Southern. I've been to southern Germany, Bavaria, and they said, it's the holiday today. I said, what's the holiday? Well, we're celebrating winning the war. I said, which war was this? They said, against, the Prussia, the northern Germany. Everywhere you go, it's the same thing. The French are rising up a lot, and you're starting this in Australia as well. In Canada, you've always had this problem because the West has been more commodity-oriented versus the East. So Toronto, they would be raising interest rates to fight real estate speculation in Toronto, and at the same time they're putting farmers and everybody into bankruptcy in Alberta. So one size does not fit all, but this is the way governments have been trying to manage their economies, and they focus only on the main centers and hell with everybody else.
Are we likely to see revolutions and changing geography around the world?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is part of the problem of the collapse of this Great Reset. It's delusional. We're not going to be able to do it. It's fine. You can get a head of state to say, yes, all right, fine, put some money in my account and I'm on board with you, but the people will rise up against this.
Where can people find out more about your books and Armstrong Economics?
Our site is armstrongeconomics.com, and I try to document everything with the sources, where this stuff comes from, So, and we don't require you to even register to look at the site. It's open for, basically, as a public service. You don't have to register to say who you are or anything else. It's open source for everybody.
Martin, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and good luck there in your election coming up very soon.
My guest has been Martin Armstrong, founder of Armstrong Economics. He was speaking to us from Florida. And that wraps up our show for this week. We'd like to thank our guests, Ross Clark, Maxime Bernier, Martin Armstrong, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions for the show or our guests, we'll be glad to ask those questions for you the next time we talk to that guest. You can send them to info@howstreet.com. Now stand by for a company showcase update from American Manganese CEO Larry Reaugh. I'm Jim Goddard. We'll be back next week with more This Week in Money.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HoweStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. We're speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. Welcome back to the show, Larry.
Hi, Jim.
Larry, you put out a news release this week. What was in it?
Well, it was the granting of the Japanese patent for our process, and that's another milestone for us. We've got South Korea and Japan, two of the biggest battery manufacturers in the world, that we now are patented in their country, and I can't stress how important these patents are to a company that wants to see growth, and we want to see growth. So, I couldn't be happier. We're still waiting on China and Australia and Canada and India, but it takes time, and you have to go through the loops, and eventually you'll get your patents. Now, it's been an exciting week. I mean, the stock moved up considerably during the week, and since August 23rd, it moved from about 92 cents up to as high as $1.49, and that has to be a good clip for anybody. Anybody buying the dips would certainly be happy, and I can't stress that enough, that you should buy the dips, because certainly the predators are selling the highs, and they're trying to beat you to the punch on buying the dips, because they're covering off their profitable trade at a higher price when they shorted it. So, we've got to continue buying the dips. Now, that covers off the first part of my podcast, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the market run-up yesterday. And up 11 cents. Certainly they're beating it back today. But what I'd like to remark about that market is I haven't seen that type of trading in AMY for, over a decade. And, because it looked like there was very little predator involvement in the trading, and it was trading on its own merit, and it just kept coming in and moving it gradually up, and so we had a nice run up yesterday. So, but that's, if anybody remembers that trade, look at that, marketing your memory, because you don't see that very often. You don't see a market trading under its own volition for what it's got, what it's worth, everything else. That's the way it used to be back in the day, and you can see that good news would bring out that type of buying, and it was a continuous thing. You got used to it, but now you rarely see it, and that's the first time I've seen it. And I watched Amy's trading every day, so I just like to say, hey guys, we had a
normal trading day once in the last 10 years. So just recall that trading and think that, God, I'd like to see that more in the future, which we will. The thing that we're going through right now is a tremendous lithium bull market. And, that's the type of bull market you see in gold, you see in silver, you see in copper, you see in all the companies that are invested or exploring for commodities. And but lithium is at the top of the list. It's and remember that the tide floats all ships, and right now the tide is positive, and so all the ships are going up. And that brings me to a situation. We're not considered a miner in lithium or anything like that, but we are. We recover close to 100% of all the lithium. And if you go to our site, to our PowerPoint, you'll see a lithium-ion battery manufacturing and scrap. And you'll see that if things continue the way they are by 2025, that it's probably going to be about 80 gigawatts of scrap lithium-ion batteries to recycle. This is the same size as the world's entire lithium-ion supply in 2017, and it equates to 64,000 tonnes of lithium chemical. Now, that would take 3 to 4 mines to produce that. But this will be coming free as 10% of the batteries are scrapped each year. So, we could be a very large contributor to the lithium and actually help stem bringing in more problematic lithium mines into production. So, and that also equates to 96,000 tonnes of graphite, 45,000 tonnes of nickel, 18,000 tonnes of cobalt, and 22,000 tonnes of manganese. And when you stop and you think about that, we're not saying we're getting all that production, but for certain we should get the lion's share because we can get 100% of it back, and are close to 100%. I shouldn't say 100%. There's no such thing as 100%. It's close to 100%. And that's about as close as you can get. So we couldn't be happier. Today's not a cheerful day, but it's not it's not a day where everything implodes. It's just another day dealing with the predators. And the only thing I'm going to say about that, the reason I talk about them, is because nobody else is talking about them. And believe it, guys, these guys are eating your friggin' lunch every goddamn day. And, they don't care. So all they want to do is make money. They want to see the company go busto, and they can take all the shekels off the table, and those are your shekels. So, we try as management in here to bring people's attention to the predator trading. Why? The more people that know about it, the less effect they have, and eventually they will change the rules. If you're wondering why the rules haven't been changed, it's because nobody's saying anything. And it's been going on for 10 years, and it's got to end here soon. There's a lot of publicity around it now. So, there's probably hardly a podcast that doesn't go through that I don't talk about predator trading. If it wasn't for discovering this anomaly in the market back in 2012, 13, I don't think I could have gotten the company out of the hole it was in. It owed $1 million. It hadn't had a salaried staff for close to 5 years, and it was running out of my pocket, which was breaking me. And finally, we got the break we needed when we did our proof of concept work, and we've never looked back. So thank you for recycling of lithium-ion batteries is all I can say. Hey, I think we got a great future, and we just have to stay the way. And there's all kinds of people that try to distract you and get you off course. I'm talking about management, in particular myself. And, they come up with all kinds of crappy things that, like one of them is, how come you haven't closed on any deal yet? Well, maybe the product is not ready to be closed on, or not at least in favorable terms. We've had a couple of stabs at it, and they were not favorable to the company, and I felt that the company was worth a lot more than that they were actually going to give us. So, it'll happen when it happens, and remember, we're not sitting on our hands waiting for a large deal to happen. We've got a prospectus in the works for $25 million, and, that will get us our first plant. And, so why sit down on your hands here and say, I'm waiting for somebody to phone and tell me they want to do a joint venture? Well, I think it's more like at the end of the day when we get that plant running, that there will probably be a bit of a battle to take over the company because, it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of money has gone into developing this product. And there's some companies that are large enough that they could buy us out of their chump change. So, I think we got nothing but a great future, and I wish you all a great weekend. This is a long weekend, and Monday's a holiday, so I'm going to enjoy it, so you enjoy it too.
Larry, for people new to American Manganese, what's the company all about?
American Manganese is a critical metals company that has developed a process for treating low grades of manganese back in 2008 to 2012. And we actually did the pre-feasibility work to put a big project at the Tillery Peak in Arizona into production. But the price was falling so rapidly that by the time the pre-feasibility study was finished, and that was about a $2.5 million study, so, you hate to see that get flushed down the toilet. But the truth of the matter is, it would have taken about 11 years to pay it back, and that's a no-go, and so it was on the shelf, and we breathed new life into it with the proof of concept work we did in 2016, and now we're here where we are today, and we're back working on manganese with the Department of Defense or the Defense Logistics Agency. So, we're progressing. We've got a lot of things happening. I'll be updating what's happening on our copper gold properties up north, and we also have a niobium property, and but I'll be updating on the copper gold for sure. It's not looking like we're going to get the patents, the permits from the Department of Mines in time to do any work this year. But we are doing IP work, and that'll be forthcoming. Now, you can find anything you want. As a matter of fact, that those numbers I gave you on the lithium are on our site and one of our PowerPoints, and but you can go to our site, AmericanManganeseInc.com, or you can phone the company here at 778-574-4444. You can email me at LREAUGH@AMYMN.com, and we trade on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol AMY. We trade on the USQB under the symbol AMYZF, and we trade in Frankfurt under the symbol 2AM.
Larry, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on September 3rd.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.